For 20 years, no giant child had been born. People said the giant race was finished. Old stories became quiet. Songs about tall warriors and mountain queens were no longer sung. The world moved on. But high above the clouds, in a broken stone temple hidden in the frozen mountains, there was still one heartbeat. It was weak. It was fading. And it belonged to the last fertile giantess. Her name was Lyra. She was not like the giants in the old stories. She did not roar. She did not carry trees like sticks. She lay on a bed made of fur and stone. Her long silver hair spread around her like snow. Her skin was pale. Her breathing was slow and painful. The elders stood around her in silence. They believed this was the end. If she died, the giant bloodline would end forever. Some said it was fate. Others said it was punishment for the old wars between giants and humans. No one spoke of hope anymore. But far below the mountain, a human man was climbing. His name was Arlen. He was not a knight. He did not wear shining armor. He carried a bow, a small knife, and a heavy pack. His boots were torn from the cold rocks. His hands were bleeding from the climb. He should not have been there. Humans were not allowed near the temple. Yet he climbed anyway. 3 nights earlier, Arlen had found something strange in the forest below the mountain. A dead hawk lay near the river. Its eyes were black. Its blood had turned dark purple. He had seen that color before. Years ago, in the war camps, he had seen soldiers poisoned with the same shade in their veins. That poison was not natural. When he heard whispers in the village that the last giantess was dying from a mystery sickness, something felt wrong. So he climbed. The wind screamed around him as he reached the temple gates. 2 giant guards blocked his path. They were tall and strong, even in old age. "Go back, human," one of them said. "She is dying," Arlen replied, breathing hard. "And she is not sick. She is poisoned." The guards froze. Inside the temple, Lyra opened her eyes for the first time that day. She felt something different in the air. Hope. Arlen was brought before her. For a moment, he forgot to breathe. Even weak, she was beautiful in a quiet way. Her eyes were large and silver, like the moon. But they were tired. So tired. "You should not be here," she said softly. Her voice was not loud like thunder. It was gentle, almost human. Arlen stepped closer. He could see the dark lines under her skin. The same purple shade he had seen in the hawk. "This is not sickness," he said. "Someone did this." The elders became angry. "No human would poison her," one said. Arlen shook his head. "Not a simple human. Someone powerful." The room fell silent. Lyra studied him carefully. Most humans feared giants. Many hated them. But this one looked at her with something else. Determination. "Why do you care?" she asked. Arlen hesitated only a second. No race deserves to disappear. Outside, the wind grew stronger. Snow hit the temple walls like thrown stones. Far away, in the royal capital, a man in dark robes stood by a warm fire. A small glass bottle rested in his hand. Empty now. He smiled. "The last giant will die before winter ends," he whispered. Back in the temple, Lyra suddenly gasped in pain. The purple vein spread further across her arm. Arlen clenched his fists. He now knew one thing for certain. This was not fate. This was planned. And if he did nothing, the girl who should not exist would be gone forever. The storm did not stop that night. Snow covered the mountain temple like a white grave. Inside, Lyra's breathing grew weaker. The purple lines under her skin had spread to her neck. The elders argued in low voices. Some said they should send the human away. Others feared he was right. Arlen stood near the stone window, watching the wind. He was thinking, if this was poison, then someone had made it carefully. It was slow. It did not kill fast. It drained strength little by little. It was meant to look like sickness. That meant one thing. Someone wanted the giants to disappear quietly. Without war. Without blame. Arlen turned to the elders. "Show me your old books," he said. The eldest giant frowned. "Human knowledge is small." "Maybe," Arlen replied calmly. "But poison leaves signs." After a long silence, they led him into a hidden chamber under the temple. The room smelled of dust and old stone. Ancient scrolls lay stacked against the walls. Arlen searched for hours. He looked at drawings of plants, ancient wars, old cures. Then he found something, a faded page showing a symbol, a black sun dripping dark liquid. His heart stopped. He had seen that mark before. Years ago, when he worked as a supply runner near the Royal Army camps, he saw that same symbol on secret boxes delivered at night. Royal alchemists used it. The poison in Lyra's body was not random. It was made in the capital. Footsteps echoed from above. Soldiers had arrived. Through the cracks in the stone wall, Arlen saw torches moving in the snow outside. Human soldiers. Too many. The elders panicked. They have come to protect her, one said weakly. Arlen shook his head. No, they have come to make sure she dies. Above them, the temple doors opened with a loud crash. Heavy boots stepped inside. Lyra heard them too. She forced herself to sit up. Every movement burned like fire inside her veins. The commander entered the chamber. He wore polished armor and a calm smile. "We bring medicine from the king," he said. His voice was smooth. Too smooth. Arlen stepped forward. "What kind of medicine?" The commander looked at him with cold eyes. "The kind that ends suffering." Two soldiers moved toward Lyra's bed. Arlen felt anger rise in his chest. He grabbed the scroll and held it up. "Then why does this symbol match your alchemist's mark?" The commander's smile faded. For a second, the mask broke. Lyra saw it. Truth. The medicine bottle in the soldier's hand trembled. Arlen walked closer to Lyra. "They poisoned you slowly," he said quietly. "They feared what you represent." Lyra looked confused. "I represent nothing." "You represent a future," Arlen answered. "A giant child means giants return, and a king fears war." The commander drew his sword. "The king fears chaos," he corrected. Outside, more soldiers surrounded the temple. The elders were frozen with fear. Arlen made a quick decision. He turned to Lyra. "There's a cure," he whispered, "but it is dangerous." Her silver eyes searched his face. "Will it save my people?" she asked. "It will save you," he replied. She closed her eyes for a moment. Then she nodded. The commander raised his sword. "Enough," he said. But before the soldiers could move, the ground shook. A loud crack split through the temple floor. The storm outside grew wild, as if the mountain itself was angry. Lyra screamed. The purple veins on her skin began to glow faintly. Something inside her was reacting. The poison was not just killing her. It was waking something ancient. The commander stepped back in fear. Arlen realized something terrifying. They had tried to bury the giant race quietly, but they might have awakened something far worse. The temple floor kept shaking. Dust fell from the ceiling. Old cracks spread across the stone walls like spider webs. Lyra's body glowed faintly. The purple poison inside her veins shined like dark fire. The soldiers stepped back in fear. "This was not part of the plan," one of them whispered. The commander tightened his grip on his sword. "Control her," he shouted. But Lyra was not attacking. She was suffering. Arlen rushed to her side. Her skin was burning hot. The glow under her veins was no longer only purple. A soft silver light was fighting it. "The poison is reacting," Arlen said. "It is trying to destroy her blood." Lyra's breathing became fast and broken. "I can feel it," she whispered. "It is tearing me apart." Arlen remembered the ancient page he had read below the temple. There was one cure. One forbidden cure. He looked at the elders. Their faces were pale. "You know about the old ritual?" Arlen said. The eldest giant closed his eyes. "That ritual was banned," he replied. "It was too dangerous." "But it can save her," Arlen insisted. The elder spoke slowly. "The ritual binds two bloodlines, giant and human. It mixes life force. If the balance fails, both die." The commander laughed coldly. "Good. Let it fail." He stepped forward to strike Lyra. Suddenly, one of the giant guards blocked his path. The old guard raised his massive arm. "No more," the guard growled. The soldiers raised their weapons. Chaos filled the temple. Arlen ignored the noise. He knelt beside Lyra. "There is a way," he said quietly, "but it will change you." Lyra opened her weak silver eyes. "Change me how?" "You may not remain fully giant," Arlen said honestly. "You may become something new." She looked past him, at the frightened elders and the armed soldiers. If I die, she whispered, the giant's end. Arlen nodded. If we try this, you might live. But I might not. Lyra stared at him in shock. Why would you risk your life? She asked. Arlen did not answer quickly. He thought about the dead hawk, the secret poison, the quiet plan to erase a race without war. No one deserves to be erased in silence, he said finally. Outside, thunder shook the mountain. The soldiers and giant guards began fighting. Steel clashed against stone clubs. Torches fell. Shadows moved wildly on the walls. Time was running out. The elders stepped closer. If you do this, he warned, your heart must be strong. Fear will break the bond. Arlen swallowed. I am afraid, he admitted. Lyra gave a faint smile. So am I. The elder drew a small blade and handed it to Arlen. One cut on your palm, one on hers. The blood must touch the temple stone. Arlen did not hesitate. He cut his hand. Pain shot through him. The elder cut Lyra's palm gently. Their blood fell onto the cracked stone floor. For a second, nothing happened. Then the ground exploded with light. Silver and red energy rose like flames around them. The soldiers stopped fighting. Everyone stared. Arlen felt something pulling from inside his chest, like his own life was being stretched. Lyra screamed as the purple poison burned brighter, then began to fade. The light grew stronger. Cracks spread across the temple pillars. The mountain roared like a living creature. The commander shouted, "Stop them!" But it was too late. The ritual had begun. Arlen's vision blurred. His heart pounded loudly in his ears. He could feel Lyra's heartbeat. Slow, then faster, stronger. But something else was happening. Her size was changing. The glowing energy wrapped around her body like threads, reshaping her. She was not shrinking fully, not staying giant either. She was becoming something new. Arlen collapsed to one knee, barely breathing. The purple veins finally disappeared. Silence filled the temple. Then Lyra stood, not as weak as before, not as tall as before, but her silver eyes were brighter than ever. The commander stepped back in fear. "What have you done?" he whispered. Lyra looked at her hands. She felt strength, not old giant strength. Something different, something balanced. Arlen lifted his head slowly. The ritual had not killed them, but it had broken an ancient law. And laws, once broken, always demand a price. The light slowly faded from the temple walls. Dust settled in the cold air. For a moment, no one moved. Lyra stood in the center of the cracked stone floor. She was no longer as tall as before. She was still taller than any human, but not a giant of old legends. Her silver eyes shone softly. The purple poison was gone. The commander stared at her in disbelief. "This is not possible," he whispered. Arlen struggled to stand. His body felt empty, like something important had been taken from inside him. But he was alive. Lyra looked down at him. "You are still here," she said quietly. He gave a weak smile. "I said I would stay." Suddenly, the commander's fear turned into anger. "Kill them," he shouted. The soldiers rushed forward again. But this time, something was different. Lyra stepped forward. She moved faster than before. Not heavy like a giant. Not slow. Her body felt light, balanced. When a soldier swung his sword, she caught the blade in her bare hand. The steel bent. The soldier froze. Lyra did not roar. She did not shout. She simply pushed him back with one hand. He flew across the room and crashed into a pillar. The other soldiers hesitated. The giant guards stared at her in shock. "She has changed," one whispered. Another soldier attacked from behind. Lyra turned quickly. Her movements were smooth, almost graceful. She disarmed him without killing him. Arlen watched in awe. This was not giant strength. This was something new. The commander stepped back slowly toward the door. "You were meant to die quietly," he said through clenched teeth. "No war. No blood. Just the end." Lyra's eyes darkened slightly. "It was true," she said. The elder giant lowered his head. "We feared this," he admitted. "The royal family never trusted peace." The commander laughed bitterly. "Peace," he said. "You call a fertile giant peace? One child from you, and armies will rise again." Lyra stepped closer to him. Her voice was calm. "I do not want war." "Then you should have died," he snapped. Silence filled the temple. That was the truth. They did not poison her because she was evil. They poisoned her because she was hope. Hope for giants meant fear for humans. The commander suddenly pulled out a small hidden dagger and rushed toward Arlen. "If she will not die," he shouted, "then the human will." Arlen was too weak to move fast. But Lyra was not. In a blink, she stood between them. She caught the dagger easily. For a moment, her strength tightened. She could kill him. It would be easy. The soldiers were already afraid. The giants were ready to fight. Work could begin here. Lyra looked into the commander's eyes. Then she did something no one expected. She dropped the dagger. "I will not prove you right," she said softly. The commander stared at her, confused. "You think mercy will protect you?" he asked. "No, Lira replied. But hatred will destroy everything." She turned to the elders. "The giants will not return through war." The elder looked at her carefully. "You are no longer fully giant," he said. She nodded. "And I am not fully human." Arlen slowly stood beside her. "What are you then?" he asked gently. Lyra looked at the broken temple around them. "I am the bridge," she said. Outside, the storm began to calm. But in the distance, more torches could be seen climbing the mountain. Reinforcements. The kingdom would not stop here. The commander smirked. "This is not over," he said. "The king will never allow you to live freely." Lyra watched the approaching lights. For the first time, she understood something clearly. Saving her life was only the beginning. The real battle was not against poison. It was against fear. And fear spreads faster than any sickness. The torches outside the mountain grew brighter. More soldiers were coming. The storm had slowed, but the danger had not. Inside the broken temple, silence felt heavy. Lyra stood near the entrance, watching the lights move up the frozen path. She could hear them clearly now. Armor touching, boots crushing snow, horses breathing hard. Before the ritual, she would have feared this. Now she felt something else. Control. Her body felt different. Strong but not heavy. Fast but not wild. Her heart beat steady, not weak. She lifted her hand and looked at it. No perpelvans. No sickness. Just warm blood. Arlen stepped beside her slowly. He was still pale from the ritual, but he refused to sit down. "You should rest," he said. Lyra shook her head. "If I hide, they will hunt me," she replied. "If I fight, they will call me a monster." The elder giant approached them. "The old giants solved problems with strength," he said. "But you're not like us anymore." Lyra nodded. "That is why I must choose carefully." Outside, the first group of soldiers reached the temple stairs. The commander from earlier stood at the front again. He looked tired, but his eyes were still cold. "You cannot win this," he shouted. "More forces are on the way." Lyra stepped forward until she stood in the open doorway. The cold wind moved her silver hair behind her. "I do not want to win," she said calmly. "I want to live." The soldiers raised their shields. Arlen felt tension rising. One wrong move could start a massacre. The commander lifted his hand. Archers. Several bows were raised at once. The arrows were aimed at Lyra's heart. Arlen's breath stopped, but Lyra did not move. She closed her eyes for a second. Then she stepped down from the temple stairs. The soldiers released the arrows. Time seemed to slow. Lyra moved, not with giant power, with balance. She stepped to the side, catching one arrow mid-air. Another she pushed away with a simple twist of her hand. The third missed her completely. The soldiers stared in shock. She did not rush them. She did not attack. She walked calmly through them. Every strike they tried failed. Every sword swing felt slow compared to her new speed. Within seconds, she stood face to face with the commander again. But no soldier was dead. No blood was spilled. She could have crushed them. She chose not to. The commander's voice shook slightly. "What are you?" Lyra looked around at the frightened men. "I am proof," she said softly, "that giants do not need war to exist." Behind her, the giant elders watched with wide eyes. Arlen realized something important. The ritual had not just healed her. It had balanced her. Giant strength. Human control. The perfect bridge between two races. The soldiers slowly lowered their weapons. Fear had changed into confusion. The commander clenched his jaw. "You think this changes anything?" he asked. "The king fears what you could become." Lyra looked toward the distant mountains beyond the valley. Then I will not stay where I am feared. The elder stepped forward. You would leave? He asked. She nodded slowly. If I remain here, I become a symbol of threat. If I go far away, I become a chance. Arlen understood her meaning. Somewhere beyond these lands, she could build something new, a future without old hate. The commander gave a bitter laugh. You cannot hide forever. Lyra met his eyes calmly. I am not hiding, she said. I am choosing peace. The torches flickered in the cold air. The soldiers stepped aside without orders. No one dared stop her now. As she walked back toward the temple, Arlen followed. For the first time in many years, the giant race was not dying. It was changing, but change is powerful, and powerful things make kings nervous. Far away in the capital, a messenger was already riding hard toward the palace. The king would soon hear the truth. The last fertile giantess had not died. She had evolved, and that kind of news could shake an entire kingdom. The mountain felt smaller now, not because it had changed, but because the world beyond it was moving. By sunrise, royal banners could be seen in the valley below. Red and gold flags covered the snow like drops of blood. The king had answered, not with a small group, with an army. Lyra stood at the edge of the temple cliff. The wind was calm now. The storm had passed. Arlen joined her, holding his side where the ritual had drained him. You do not have to face them, he said quietly. Lyra did not look away from the valley. If I run without speaking, they will chase me forever, she replied. Fear grows in silence. Behind them, the giant elders gathered. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to hide her deep inside the mountains. Old habits were hard to break. The elder leader spoke. If war begins here, giants will be blamed again. Lyra turned slowly. War has already begun, she said. It began with poison. Down below, the royal army formed long lines across the snow. Shields locked together. Archers ready. Cavalry waiting behind. At the center stood a tall white tent. The king had come in person. Arlen felt a cold chill. This is dangerous, he whispered. Lyra nodded. Yes. She stepped forward and began walking down the mountain path. The giant guards moved to follow her. She raised her hand gently. No, she said. This must be my choice alone. Arlen hesitated. Then he walked beside her. I said I would stay, he reminded her. She allowed a small smile. They reached the base of the mountain. The army grew silent. Thousands of eyes stared at her. Not at a monster, not at a dying giant, but at something unfamiliar. The king stepped out from his tent. He was older than Arlen expected. His hair was gray, but his posture was strong. His eyes were sharp and careful. So, the king said, his voice carrying across the snow, you survived. Lyra stopped a few steps away. Yes. The king studied her carefully. You are smaller, he observed. I am changed, she replied. The soldiers shifted nervously. The king's voice became firm. You understand what you are, do you not? One child from you could restart the giant race. Lyra answered calmly. And what do you fear? That we will attack again? The king did not answer immediately. Arlen noticed something. The king did not look angry. He looked afraid. History teaches us caution, the king finally said. Giants once marched across our cities. And humans once hunted us into the mountains, Lyra replied. Silence spread across the field. Both truths were heavy. The king stepped closer. If you remain in this kingdom, people will panic. Lords will prepare armies. Blood will return. Lyra nodded slowly. I know. The king raised his chin. Then what do you plan to do? Lyra looked past the army, toward the far horizon. Beyond the kingdom, beyond the maps, there were lands no one ruled. Cold lands. Wild lands. Free lands. I will leave, she said clearly. Murmurs moved through the soldiers. You expect me to trust that? The king asked. Lyra met his eyes directly. No, I expect you to remember that I could have killed your men yesterday, and I did not. The king's face tightened. He had heard the reports. Not one soldier dead. Not one crushed body. Only fear. After a long silence, the king spoke again. If you leave our borders and do not raise an army, we will not chase you. It was not kindness. It was a risk. Lyra bowed her head slightly. Then there will be peace. The king turned away without another word. The army slowly parted. A path opened. Arlen looked at Lyra. "This is exile," he said quietly. She shook her head. "No," she replied. "This is freedom." Together, they walked past the army, past the fear, past the old war lines drawn in snow. Behind them, the kingdom remained tense but quiet. Ahead of them, the unknown waited. Lyra did not know if her lineage would survive. She did not know if children would be born. But for the first time, her future was not decided by poison or fear. It was decided by choice. And sometimes, choice is more powerful than strength. Years passed. The kingdom did not fall. The giants did not return with armies. And yet, the world slowly began to change. Far beyond the kingdom's borders, past the frozen mountains and empty plains, there was a wide valley surrounded by tall cliffs. A river ran through it, clear and strong. That was where Lyra chose to begin again. The land was wild but peaceful. No viners, no armies, no kings, only open sky. Arlen built the first shelter with his own hands. It was small compared to the giant temples, but strong enough to stand against wind and snow. Lyra helped, her new balanced strength making work easier. She was no longer towering over mountains, but she was powerful in a different way. Not frightening. Steady. The first year was quiet. The second year was hopeful. By the third year, rumors began to travel. Travelers spoke of a tall, silver-haired woman who healed wounded animals instead of hunting them. A woman who could lift fallen trees, yet speak gently to strangers. Some called her a spirit. Some called her a myth. But the truth was simpler. She was building something new. Children were born in the valley. Not fully giant. Not fully human. They were strong, but not wild. Taller than most humans, but not towering like old giants. Their eyes carried a faint silver shine. They laughed easily. They ran freely. They feared no one. Arlen would watch them from the hill above the valley. His hair had started turning gray. The ritual had taken years from his body, but he never complained. One evening, Lyra stood beside him as the sun set behind the cliffs. "They are different," she said softly. "Yes," Arlen replied. "Different can be good." She looked down at her hands. "I was supposed to be the last," she said. Arlen shook his head gently. "You were supposed to disappear quietly," he corrected. She smiled faintly. The world beyond the valley slowly changed too. Merchants passed near the region and reported no attacks. No giant raids. No armies forming. Only farms. Only families. The king who once feared her grew old. His son took the throne. And unlike his father, he grew up hearing stories not of giant wars, but of a peaceful valley where two bloodlines lived together. One winter, a royal messenger finally arrived at the edge of the valley. He did not come with soldiers. He came alone. Arlen met him first. "We bring no threats," the messenger said carefully. "The new king wishes to open trade." Lyra stepped forward. There was no fear in her eyes now, only quiet strength. "If there is respect," she said, "there will be peace." The messenger bowed. And just like that, something that once seemed impossible became real. Not an alliance built on fear, but understanding built on patience. Years later, children in the kingdom learned a new story. Not about giant invasions, not about human betrayal, but about the day when the last fertile giantess was poisoned and a human chose to save her. They learned that extinction had been planned in silence, and that one small act of courage had broken that silence. On a quiet morning, long after the wars had faded into memory, Lyra stood in the valley, surrounded by children playing in the grass. She placed her hand on the earth and felt many heartbeats around her. Strong, alive, growing. She was never meant to survive, but she did. Not by destroying her enemies, not by proving her strength, but by choosing change over revenge. High above the valley, carved into the stone cliff, simple words were written. No race deserves to disappear in silence. And beneath those words, children of two worlds ran freely under the same sky. The last giantess was no longer the last. She was the beginning.